Hello everyone, shall we begin now? I'm Wai-Yee Chen. It's about 10 p.m. here in Sydney, Australia. So good day to everyone, wherever you are, whatever time zone you are in. Well, okay, let's begin. And I've entitled today's topic as Neuroinvesting Strategies. We are going to talk about the intersecting of neuroscience, psychology, and investing today. Now, before we begin, it will be helpful for all of us to do two things. Firstly, I'm just going to go through the disclaimer. So everyone is familiar that there is no advice given, and you should seek your own advice and assistance if you were to rely on any of these. Now, the second thing is to set the scene for you today. Now, this is purely for you, those who are involved in Forex trading. Now, I'm not speaking to you as a fellow currency trader. I don't trade in currency. On a daily basis, I operate in equities and equities derivatives space, and I write about investing on psychology of investing. So today, I'm speaking to you as an observer into your world. Now, these are the three observations that I've made looking into your world from an equities advisor point of view. The first is that in Forex trading is actually the pair that's the key. What I mean by that is that in equities trading, there are variables aplenty that we need to deal with, not just the macroeconomics, currencies, interest rates, but we deal with downright to the individual company and management itself. But in currency trading, that's not your concern. For you, is the pair, is you and your currency pair, which means you and your opponent. So these are the two elements that will be focusing on yourself as well as your opponent, your pair. Basically, put it simply, to win in your game, what you need is to be able to perceive what your opponent will do, not just yourself, but what your opponent may do, think, or act and react to the same elements, same news that you'll be reading. So that's the key. Now, secondly, from my observation into your world of currency trading is leverage. Now, leverage is key in Forex trading because the decision is up to you. How much you want to leverage is up to you. In other types of trading, it depends on the collateral that you put up, be it like a property or a share. Your level of leverage is not quite up to you, but in Forex trading, it's up to you, your decision, but how will you choose? The third observation in Forex trading is that you deal in pips, as you are familiar with, but I deal in basis points. So you are actually dealing in a space where tiny movements make a great impact in your world. So what it means is precision and focus in small movements is essential for you in your world. So precision, focus, and being able to perceive your opponent, that will be your edge. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about the neuroinvesting strategies that will be very useful for you in currency trading. Focus, precision, and perception. Now, if you look into this graph here, strategy number one that I want you to take away is that there are three parts in your brain. Use all of your three in one brain. On the left here, you see your logic brain, which we are all very familiar with. We're trained from young to think logically, assess risk and reward of our trades, calculate, go by rules. But this middle part here, which is the emotional brain, I call it collectively the emotional brain, which really consists of two parts of our other brain, which is the reptile brain, which is a brain stem, which connects the hind brain to our backbone, our nervous system, and then the second part of it, which is a little bit deeper, which is called the limbic system, which is the mammalian brain. So collectively, that's the emotional brain. The logic brain, which we are very familiar with, and the emotional brain, which we're less familiar with. Now, if we know how to interact both of them, engage with them the right amount at the right time, what we're going to get is a perceptive brain. And that's what we want, because when you are in this space, you're going to be flowing in with what's happening in the market. You're going to perceive what your opponents are thinking, and you are going to be able to see beyond words and numbers. So what I would like you to do today is to think about your brain as three parts, which it really is. Look at this diagram here in the next slide. Can you see the three parts of your brain? So the first part here is the logic brain, which is here. The part of our brain, the cortex here, which is the part of the brain that we're all familiar with, trained since young when we're in school, how to think logically. But this part here, which is the emotional brain, which most of us are not trained, taught how to use it, how to understand it and work with it, or much less control it. And the third part of this is the brainstem bit, which is connected to our body. Now, this is the part, the orange circle bit, which I really want to talk to you about, because this is where this is the seed of our emotions. Now, I want you to look at amygdala. Now, amygdala is very small. It's only in the shape of an almond seed, so it's quite small. But this organ here, though small, but is powerful, because that's where the seed of our fear lies. If we were to put our brains under fMRI brain scan, you see that when we fear or we hear things that incite fear in us, you will see that this part of the brain, the amygdala, will light up. It will lit up in bright orange. It will expand from an almond seed to bigger part of our brain, and we'll see that this whole part here will be lit up. And that's where the fear engine is for us. Now, what about reward seeking, or sometimes we call it the greed in us? We can also trace that to the part of our emotional brain. Now, if you look at this part here, which is the VTA, and that part here is the nucleus accumbens, we call it NAC for short. VTA is the engine room where dopamine is produced. And we know that dopamine is a neurochemical in our brain that gives us excitement or excite us. We know that. And when we see or hear stimuli that excite us, for example, if I'm thinking from the equity space, if you want to go long in something and you get all the indicators from your chart or fundamentals that you're reading that things are moving on the way up, you're going to get excited because you want to get long, you want to get into the trade. Now, that's when VTA gets excited, dopamine gets produced. And when dopamine gets produced, it travels from where it's produced to the neck. And when it's received at the neck, it will actually excite the neurotransmitter at the neck, and that's where electric spark will happen, and that's when excitement will happen. So as you can see, this is the engine room of our emotions of fear, as well as reward seeking, or greed or excitement or adrenaline or dopamine, whatever you call it. That's where it is. We can trace it all the way down to our emotional brain. So the first part of it is in understanding that there are three parts to our brain. It's not just the logical part of it where we think logically, we make assumptions, we do pros and cons, we do scenario analysis, but there's another part of it where we feel, things are triggered in us, fears and greed and all those emotions come about. And the third part of the brain, the brainstem, is when sensations come to us. Now, there has been a lot of studies done by scientists and psychologists as well, way back in the 1800s, particularly by one called James William. And he said that when we actually feel something, we have actually sensed it first before we felt it. For example, if you are nervous, you feel sweat in your palm. And because you see and you feel the sweat in your palm, and therefore you know that you're nervous. So it's the sensations of your body that is giving you a message, telling you your emotions, how you are feeling. So together with the sensations of your body, feeling that, sensing that, being aware of that, and also linking that to your emotional brain, that's where the key is. Integrating all of that will give you an extra edge, extra information that you can't get merely by looking at data, by reading from the logical brain. So that is the 3-in-1 parts of our brain, and I would encourage you to integrate them, to use all 3 of them, because all 3 of them have different elements, different advantages that they can give to you, and different strengths. Now, then that brings us to the next question, because each one of us are triggered by different things of how we feel fear and how we feel excitement. Because each one of us have a unique, what I call money personality. So neuroinvest strategy number 2 that I want to leave with you is know yourself, know your unique money personality. In my book, I've used a very classical model, which is called the Big 5 factor. Basically, we explain or described our personality profile into big 5 factors. You see here, which is extroversion, neuroticism, conscientiousness rather, agreeableness, and openness. Now, all of us have a varying degree of each one of these, but the degree of us having each of these types of personality in us will determine the tendency of how fear or excitement or different kinds of emotions are being triggered in us. Now, let's take, for example, neuroticism. Now, that is the part of our personality that will give us a big clue into our fear print. Each one of us have a different fear print. It's just like your fingerprint, finger thumb. We have each unique one of our own fear print. Now, neuroticism is a factor that can help us identify or categorize the level of our fear print. Let's take, for example, a piece of news that say in the media, they're talking about depression or recession in the market, job losses, interest rate rising, for example. So one who is very high on neuroticism, or we say less emotional stability, or more pessimistic or higher level of anxiety, would look at the piece of news from a negative perspective. And because that part of the personality actually incites fear in them easier and quicker than someone who has a lower level of neuroticism. So one who has a higher level of neuroticism needs to be more aware of their fear print, because a neutral piece of news, or a piece of news which seems to be neutral to one another, can seem to be highly negative to them. So we need to know where our fear print is, and that will help us to work with the amygdala, which is the fear neural network in our brain, so that together we can neutralize it or tweak them or modulate them, so that we can make decisions and invest in a more neutral emotional level. Now, what about impulse meter? Now, that's quite an important factor, because we all know that we don't want to be making impulsive decisions in trading, because that's not going to help us in making decisions that's going to give you greater return, or to help you to decide whether you should cut loss, or how much leverage you should be trading, or how you should view a piece of news. Impulsiveness is not positive, but using the impulse that is natural from our limbic system, where our emotions arrive from, is going to give us an edge. So it's how we actually maneuver this fine line between taking advantage, being aware of the impulse that's in us, versus being impulsiveness. So that's a fine line. And being able to understand where we are in terms of our personality profile will help us to a large extent to put us in a neutral or a balanced impulse meter. For example, if one has a high level of extroversion, it's just the opposite of neuroticism, where this person is highly optimistic, has a high form of adrenaline, and see the positive in a lot of things. So when that a piece of news which is neutral to a lot of people may seem positive and overly optimist to a person who is high in extroversion. Now, one who is not careful with that tendency and the dopamine rush or the high level of the activation of the neck in the emotional brain may jump on the impulsiveness and trade when there is nothing to trade or they shouldn't be trading. So that is important to be able to integrate your money personality to understand your own personal tendencies, where you are at neutral, when you're at neutral gear, so that when things happen, when news comes at you, when stimuli comes at you, you know where your gear is, and then you can shift up and down appropriately. Now, the third thing that's important in knowing yourself and your unique money personality is in your thought model, because how you think is very important, especially from the not just from the neuro perspective, but from how you trade as well. As we know, half the battle is lost if we have negative thoughts, if we have limiting beliefs, if we think that we can't, if we think that a lot of the trades that I've done are losses, or before you begin, you say, in the equity space, it's quite common. We say, I hear people say, if I'm buying, you should be selling, or if I'm selling, you should be buying. And you shouldn't talk like that, because that is self-limiting. Now, the way we think has an impact on our neural pathways, and how our neural pathways work affects how we think. And what do I mean by that? This brings us to Neuroinvest strategy number 3. This is how our neural pathways are in our brain. Now, we need to be prepared. We need to train before the war to serve during the war. Now, train what? Train your neural pathways. Now, let's begin by looking at the middle part of it. Now, you see this neural here. This is who you are at the moment. A lot of neurons that have been firing together, that have been working together. What I mean by that is associations, habits, think patterns. They are formed, they're well formed, they're hardwired. For example, you see stimuli X, it triggers your reactions in Y. And no matter how you tell yourself when you see X, don't react in Y, because it's not the positive way in trading to react. It frustrates you and it causes you to make the wrong decisions, but still you keep doing it. But why? Why do we keep doing things that we tell ourselves not to do? It's because of this, because these neural pathways are so well walked on, so well trodden, that it's hard for us to not go the same route. Just think about driving a familiar path. If you drive to work all the time, you don't have to think, but you can get from home to work automatically. And that's how it is with our thinking patterns. These are all the hardwired neural pathways that are in your brain. It's automatic, it's unconscious, it happens. But these are the very neural pathways that we need to break open and be aware of these that are unconscious, automatic, that are not helpful in our trading. Now, this is where we need to prune. Some of these, we need to discard them, let them faint out, not walk on them anymore, let them be the pathway, the neural pathway that you'll be taking from now onwards. And that's on the left-hand side. These will be the neural pathways that you'll be discarding. Over time, they will faint out. They will not be your natural route. They will not be your habitual route. But it comes from pruning and training them, discarding them, and training them into the new neural pathways. Now, how does this work? Because from neuroscience, we understand one very important concept, and that's called neuroplasticity. Basically, what it's saying is very simple. It's saying that our brain is plastic. It's not fixed. Some of us think that if you're born this way, we are this way, and we're going to continue this way. It's not true. Scientists are telling us that we can chart a new course. We can redirect our neural pathways. Now, this is how it's being explained. Herd theory is a theory that's been discovered by Donald Herd many, many years ago in the 1940s. Basically, what he says is this is the concept. Neurons that fire together become hardwired over time. Neurons that fire together wire together. So you see here the two neurons working here. Now, this is the sending neuron. What happens is that this neuron will send an electrical impulse via the traveling of neurochemical signals, huge, quick, and it will go to this synapse area. There's a gap between this sending neuron and this other neuron, which is the receiving neuron. Now, because of the speed of the electrical signal that it travels, that's sent from this nucleus of this axon, it travels very quickly down the axon terminal and jump across to the receiving neuron. Now, these two neurons fire together. These are your habits. These are your habitual associations. Now, if they are positive, if they are productive, if they are good habits, thinking patterns, well and good, they're hardwired well. But what if they're not? Each time this thing happens, it sends across the synapse gap and it goes to the receiving neuron, and you behave and you react not according to how you want to react. So these two neurons are what we need to discard the old way if they're not productive, they're not the habits that you want, and we need to change them. We need to redirect from the sending neuron to another receiving neuron and not this one. So to think differently is just this: redirect your neurons to a different neural pathway. As simple as that. That's the basis of neuroplasticity. Neuroscientists discovered this, they've been studying on this, and they're telling us that we don't need to be hardwired. Our brain is plastic. We can change. We can redirect our neurons to the way we want it to be. So this is a strategy for you. Train your neuron the way you want it to be. Train how you want to think before the war. And when the war comes, define your own war. You are going to think correctly, rightly, and a productive way that is not going to frustrate you and give you the results that you want in your trading. So this is what we have in summary. Neuro investing strategies, 3 of them for you to let you have the focus, precision, and perception that you need in currency trading. Use all of your 3-in-1 brain, not just the logical brain. There's a lot in there in your emotional brain, not just in helping you to understand and control and manage your emotions, but much more. As you dwell more into it, as you practice and train the neurons that are working in your emotional brain, as you understand it more, you're going to be more perceptive. You're going to have the intuition and the flow and seeing things, seeing data beyond data, having insights that your logical brain can't deliver to you. Logical brain alone cannot deliver to you. So strategy number 1, use all of your 3-in-1 brain. And neuroinvest strategy number 2, know your own unique money personality. What makes you fear? What makes you impulsive? How do you think? What are your current neural pathways? Do you need to prune some, discard some, and redirect some to your new neural pathways? And neuroinvest strategy number 3, train your neurons before the war to serve you during the war. It's so important to practice, to train these neural pathways, because to untrain, to discard, and to retrain new pathways takes time, takes practice. But it's there, it's for us to do it. Our brain is able to do it, is trained, and is given the ability to do it through neuroplasticity. So I'm going to leave that open now for questions. If you have anything you want me to clarify or any questions at all, I'm happy to answer it. No, I'm not related to James Chen. Who is James Chen? I'm going to leave you to this. If you have more questions or you want to connect with me or contact me after this webinar, so this is my email. So if you have any feedback or if you have any questions later on that comes to mind or suggestions, whatever it may be, feel free to email me there. And I update some of my thoughts and I write about these in social media. And that's my book. If you want to read more about it, obviously in this 30 minutes, we're not able to dwell deeper into a lot of these concepts that I've talked about. There's a lot in there. You can buy my book from major bookstores or Amazon, and I can customize workshops or presentations later on in future. But if you have anything else today, you can either send in your questions now or email me later. Okay, I've got some questions here. Are there any specific exercises to improve strategies? Okay, that depends on what strategies you want to improve on. Because there are various organs in our brain for us to train. I mean, is it fear? Is it impulsiveness? Is it to think differently? Or is it to be more perceptive, to be able to use your emotional brain to your advantage? So there are practices, yes, to help you. But firstly, what are the specific issues that you want to improve on? Another question is, any quick way to alter emotion of negativity? Okay, now, firstly, emotion of negativity is one that has been building in us. So a quick way may not be the solution to altering or to dealing with the emotions of negativity. It comes from many areas in our lives. It could be background, family, upbringing, our experiences, our education, experiences particularly where we have traded before and it hasn't been successful, or consecutive losses, things like that create negativity in us. That's one. Now, the second part of it is that it could be our tendency. Remember the 5 factors that I talked about just now? I'll bring you back there. This is the 5 factors. So those who are high in neuroticism, this part here, has a higher tendency of having negative emotions. Okay, if you want to know what your 5 factors are, you can jump online to my website, waiyeechen.com. There is under the Learn tab, there is a questionnaire there that you can and do. I think it's just about 10 questions or so. It's quite quick. It will give you a quick overview of your 5 factors, or you can buy my book, and at the back of it there's a hard copy questionnaire as well, which you can do. So that gives you a quick overview of who you are, where you're at, and are you high in neuroticism. So not quite quick ways. There are ways to deal with it, but we need to know where we are starting from first, and then we'll deal with them one by one. Another one, I think, is a comment. All 3 strategies that you mentioned, I want to improve. I think so. They're very, very important. Like I said from the very beginning, especially for you, I don't trade in Forex. I am an observer, I would say, but sometimes, being observer is more objective because, you can see things from the outside. But it's very key for you. I've got 12 strategies in my book, but these are the 3 that I think are so key and are really what you need. So you really need to focus on them, develop them, practice them, and learn how to make them be a part of you. Okay, how to deal with specific problems in trading, like the fear to lose. Yeah, this is a big one, Bernard. I know this. Fear to lose is a big one. Now, fearing to lose, there are two parts of it, because it is fearing to lose and also fearing of losing out. The fearing of losing out is what that caused a lot of people get into trades when they shouldn't. And because they got into trades that they shouldn't, then it caused them to fear even more. Okay, so you need to know that the fear emotion is real, is in all of us. Fear is not a bad thing at all. I didn't have time to dwell into it, but I was saying earlier on in the three parts of our brain. If I can get back to the slides, I don't know how to move there. The three parts of our brain. Okay, let me try and get back there. You have the logic brain, the emotional brain. So the emotional brain part is where your fight and flight survival instinct comes from. So fear is good because fear keeps you safe. Because if we don't have fear, then we can be taking all the risks out there that we see and that are available to us, which are not good for us. So fear is there for a particular purpose, to keep us safe, to help us make decisions that are good for us. So a healthy dose of fear is needed. So the issue is in managing the fear, the right dosage, and what kinds of fear it is. Okay, see my question above. FX boy key. Is visualization good? Okay, I don't quite understand by what you mean by visualization. I think this is to do with intuition. Is that right? Am I right? Being able to perceive, to see things beyond words and data. And I think if that's what you mean, yes, that is very good because it gets you into another space. It gets you to be able to perceive. It's so important because you're dealing in currency. It's not just you being able to understand what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and how you may react to a particular piece of news. It's what your opponent will do, because what they do, you don't do. And what they don't do, you do, because you are at the opposite end of your opponent. So being able to perceive, or perhaps visualize is your word, to have the intuition of what your opponent is doing is very key. In one of the sections of my book under instinct, being instinctual, I talk about mirror neurons. I think you should all read that, because sometimes we think this visualization thing and being instinctual is fluffy, but I can actually trace it down to where in our brain that we can actually be instinctual, intuitive, and being able to mirror to see what somebody else is seeing. That's leading edge science. You should really read it. And I was so excited when I discovered about mirror neurons. You have to read it. And I think FX Borky, that's where your visualization will come from. That's your fix. Go read it. Carlos, you want me to show the slides again? Okay, I'm trying to get back there. I will try. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, there's a question here. How do you overcome the emotions when you realize that you close a trade at 20 pips profit, but if not, you will have made 100 pips? Okay, all right. This is real, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, I can see this question. Okay, this is this happens to all kinds of traders, not just in currency trading, okay, in equities as well. In not allowing profits to run, okay, we cut short our profits too quickly. Whilst it's losses, yes, you cut your losses quick, but in trading, when it's a profit, you let it run, you don't cut it short. And why do we have the tendency to cut short profits? The answer is this: because of anxiety. Okay, because what you see in front of you, that 20 pips is real, all right? And you get this anxiety in your brain. If I don't lock it in, what if it goes back down and I'm going to lose it? And then on the other part of it is that what if I lock it in and then I lose the other 80 pips? And that is real. But you need to be able to come to a place where there's no anxiety. Then you are able to think on a neutral and a clear mind that whether it's these 20 pips that is all there is for you to take in this trade, or perhaps there is more. So you need to come to that space where anxiety is not in play. It's just your analysis, perhaps it's your logic brain that will need to come in. That's where you need to have a control of your emotional brain. Put that aside. Anxiety is not going to help you. If there is more, if your logical brain is telling you, I think there is more, then go with it. Don't let anxiety sit in and take over and cut you short of that 80 pips. Does that help you? Okay, I've got another question here. Why be concerned with opponents? Because in trading, it's not just about you. It's about everyone else out there. Yes, you are thinking a particular way, you are feeling a particular way, and you are doing what you think is right. But if you are not sensing what's out there and you keep doing what you think is right, and you keep going against the groove or the flow or the momentum in the market, no matter how right you are, you could be wrong in your timing. You could be wrong. You could be wrong now, but you could be right sometime down the road. But we don't have all the money in the world to prove ourselves to be right sometime down the road. That's why it's important to know what our opponent is thinking so that we can react the other way to your opponent. Because if you're long, the other side is short. If the other side is short, you are long. So you need to know what they are thinking, the other side is thinking, so that you can plan your own moves. I've got another question here. Does meditation help in improvement? I got to say, yes. And I'm not sure whether everyone has done meditation here. There are all kinds of meditation as I've learned over the course of the last 18 months. Whatever that you do, that you call it as meditation or whatever you think it may be, as long as it stills your mind, helps you to focus, then that is good. Now, what I found very, very useful, be it whether one meditates or not, is to practice this one strategy that is so important. And this is it. Pause. Okay, pause. If you want to do something, pause. 10 seconds, then think about it again. I find it so useful in a lot of, not just in trading, in many areas in life as well. And also in neuroscience, I found the basis for it. When we pause, that's when our brain has a chance to stop the activation. Remember the neuron, sending neuron to receiving neuron? Because if we keep activating and keep sending the stimuli and keep producing those neurochemicals that allow these two neurons to be activating each other, the electric sparks is just going to continue. Be it anxiety, be it anxiousness, be it excitement, whatever that emotions that you're feeling at that moment, if you don't stop, if you don't pause, it's going to keep activating. It's going to elevate it, whatever the emotional level is. So the key is pause, stop. If meditation is what you do, cup of tea is what you do, or walking away, looking out the window, whatever that may be, at least 10 seconds, stop. That will stop a lot of the impulsiveness, stop a lot of the wrong decisions that we may make, a lot of frustrations or post-rationalization that we may do. So pause. I like that too, yeah, pause. That's great. That's my personal favorite as well. Are there good foods for good brains? That's an interesting question. I think alcohol doesn't help. Beef doesn't help. I think in my research when I was writing my book, I think to create the amino acid in our brain that will help stimulate all these positive neurochemicals in our brain. So I think protein production is needed, and food that gives you protein is good. I think things like tofu and that kind of stuff, alcohol doesn't help, red meat doesn't help. I talked a bit about that in my book, but yes, I think eating the right kinds of food does help produce the right kinds of proteins, that stimulate the right kinds of neurochemicals in our brain. Is that going to affect your diet, FX Boyke? Any other questions I haven't answered? Has this been useful for you today? That's good. Good to know. All right, everyone. So I'm going to wrap up now. I'm going to, if I can get to the last slide. Okay, Carlos, you wanted slides. So I'm just going to, as a way of wrapping up, I'm just going to do this. The neuro investment strategy number 1, use your 3-in-1 brain, 3 parts of your brain. Strategy number 2, know your unique money personality. Strategy number 3, prepare before the war, so it will serve you during the war, and let neuroplasticity play a part in you. And this is my email, Wai-Yee@waiyeechen.com. Hope to hear from you, and let's connect there. If you want to read more, get my book, or we can connect again later to talk again. So good night for me, or good day to everyone else. Thanks everyone. See you next time.